Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin, here to bring you the next in our mock draft series as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft itself, which really is only a few weeks away now, 3 weeks approximately till the NFL draft is kicking off. I'm recording this on a Thursday, so it's exactly 3 weeks, I think, from today. Super exciting stuff, obviously. The Falcons may not have a ton of picks, but they have options. They have some, obviously, they've got pick 15. They've got a top 50 pick in the second round, and then there's a bit of a gap, right? But there are things they could do. There are lots of options, and we're going to look at some different options this time. And this mock draft is actually inspired by the SB Nation Writers mock draft, where I was making the pick for the Falcons. So I'm going to be pulling in my first round pick from that mock draft to kind of get this one started and kind of go through my thought process with that pick and sort of some of the things that I learned from that that might be maybe reflective of how some other teams actually think and what other teams are actually looking to do, notably around a trade, right? Because we all know, I think, that the Falcons would like to trade down from 15. I think that's something they would more or less, I think it's been confirmed that they are looking intently at trading down from 15, assuming the player they want is not there, the guy that, if there is a guy that they really want. And that's sort of the kicker is, what if the guy you want's there? Do you still take a trade down? Because you still need picks. You still got a lot of holes to fill on this roster, on both the offensive and defensive lines and in the secondary and all this stuff. So we're going to get into that. We're going to take a closer look at some options for the Falcons and go through some different players, some different fits, because I'm sure there will be a lot of people that just read the mock draft or just glance at the picks and then say like, oh, well, why didn't you take this guy or that guy or whatever? And part of it is that I just want to bring you guys some different prospects, some different players. You know, there are guys that I'm taking that maybe wouldn't be my first choice at all these spots, but I also don't want to just take the same, guys at every round, because a lot of times these guys are going to be around at the same time. That's boring, right? We want to talk about some different prospects because, like it or not, the Falcons may not agree with my takes in the draft or your takes in the draft. And I think it benefits everyone to kind of take a look at some different guys, some different approaches, because more often than not, the Falcons don't agree with my takes and they do their own thing. So I think we should all get out of our comfort zone a little bit and consider some things, especially based on what we've heard and seen so far in this draft process. So I'm excited to get to this draft as we get into some different stuff here today on the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening again. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. We really appreciate that. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a comment with your own mock draft at the end of this, picks that you liked, that you didn't like. If you want to join up with our Patreon, that's patreon.com/Falcoholic. You can also join the YouTube channel memberships. We're going to be having an exclusive live Falcons 7-round mock draft with Trayshawn on Monday night at 5:30. That's the current time. TBD, depending on availability of Trayshawn, maybe some other special guests. If you want to take part in that, help us make the picks, maybe make some trades, you can sign up all the way up until the draft itself kicks off to get access. But if you're not a member, don't have the money, don't want to do it, whatever, don't worry. You could still watch the recording of that show after the fact. But if you want to help us make the picks, you got to be there. So definitely a fun show. I'm excited to get into that stuff. And of course, I want to bring you guys a new message from our latest sponsor here for March Madness. We are now partnering with my bookie over here for the first time. So shout out to those guys. March Madness is here, guys. You know that. Every game is a chance to cash in from the first tip-off to the Final Four. Every night promises high-stakes matchups, wild finishes, and big-time betting opportunities. My bookie has a special deal here called Bet and Get. It's back. It sweetens the deal for you. You can place a cash bet on March Madness and get a surprise reward. This can include anything from free bets to cash back, bonus chips. You never know what's coming next. It changes. Whether it's a number one seed rolling on an underdog, shocking the world, smart bettors know the real money is made one game at a time. Listen up. Sign up now with our promo code. It's MM, as Archer would say, as in Mancy. No, like man. March Madness 50 is the promo code, and you can boost your bankroll with a deposit bonus designed to help you make the most of your money. If you don't want a bonus, that's okay too. Just make sure you put in that promo code to let them know that we sent you there. You can bet on every game, anytime, from anywhere, only with MyBookie. So give those guys a look. Check those guys out. We appreciate those guys for hopping on and sponsoring today's episode. Thank you. All right, well, let's dive into this mock draft. First round pick 15. So in the SB Nation Writers mock, which there will be a published, written version of that coming out soon, I'm sure. But, I let you guys know that I'm picking for the Falcons in that mock draft, and we are through the 15th pick at this point. There wasn't a lot of trading going on in this mock draft. There was a constant desire to trade down from pretty much every single team from like 5 to 20, right? Every team wants to trade down. And this, I think, is an important lesson to learn, which is that everybody wants to trade down. Only a few teams are probably going to get that opportunity. And it's probably going to, and because everyone's trying to trade down, the value's probably not going to be great in that trade down, which is kind of what I communicated last week when we did that trade down. For only a third and a fourth, you're not getting great value in that trade down because, again, so many teams want to trade down. It's just not, it doesn't seem like it's going to be coveted. Now, we did get some offers, including one to drop all the way out of the first round. But, to do that, I basically said we need a future first to make that happen, or 2 seconds, right? Like, if you've got 2 seconds, we could consider that. But no one was willing to give a future first, or nobody had 2 seconds. So, that's kind of what it would take for me to actually trade out of the first round. I mean, I think that's kind of the starting point for those negotiations. And, these were teams picking at the top of the second round, obviously, which makes that future first potentially very valuable, right? So I would have definitely listened to that offer, but no one was willing to go that high. So trade down didn't really materialize, but that's okay. The reason I was willing to ask for high compensation was because the guy that I want the Falcons to draft at 15 was there, and that's edge rusher Mike Green from Marshall, a guy that I fell in love with at the Senior Bowl. I know his hype was building before that, but I hadn't really spent any time watching him prior to the Senior Bowl. But at this point, Mike Green on the field, I have no concerns about. Obviously, the off-field stuff is going to be up to the Falcons and up to the NFL teams to evaluate. I don't have any information on this stuff. So it's really hard for me to make any sort of fair determination one way or the other. Obviously, I don't like to see the allegations, and I would normally assume that the Falcons would not have Mike Green on their board because of it, but that is not the case, right? It seems like he has either answered the questions adequately or the Falcons just don't care. I don't know. But after we saw, Raheem Morris and basically the whole crew down at Marshall's Pro Day, it seems pretty clear that they're very much in on Mike Green. They were really interested at the Senior Bowl as well. It seems like he's someone that they're strongly considering, and it's easy to see why, right? He's an impact pass rusher right away. Crazy athleticism. That 6'8" 3 cone is nuts. It's an elite time. You can see it on tape. He's explosive. And when you're looking at a guy who's coming from a lower level of competition, you want to see dominance, right? You want to see that he's dominating that lower level of competition because, if you can't see him against high level competition, you need to know that he's way too good for the low level. And that was absolutely the case. Piled up 17 sacks, over a 20% win rate as a pass rusher, and a really good run stop win rate as well. He's no slouch against the run. I mean, I think obviously we'll get to the size and things like that. It's probably not going to be as dominant a run defender against NFL size, but not a bad run defender by any stretch. And, the questions about the level of competition, you kind of got those answered, right? You saw him pile up 2 sacks against Ohio State. I mean, that's no fluke, right? Those tackles are pretty good. And the Senior Bowl, he dominated everybody he went against, right? So you I'm willing to overlook the competition concerns because we saw him mitigate those concerns with a great game against the best opponent that he played. That's really important. And the Senior Bowl competition, really important to see that. We know the Falcons value the Senior Bowl too. So, the thing with Green, he's not a prototypical build. He's 6'3", 250, 32-inch arms. I mean, the 32-inch arms are kind of the one thing that, concern me a bit. But he doesn't win with length. That's not really something that his game is predicated on. He's a bendy speed rusher. He's explosive and he's very physical too. Like he combines those movement skills, that athleticism with a lot of physicality. That's why he's been so good against the run despite those size limitations. He really knows how to manipulate leverage and work. He has great pad level. And that 6'3" height, that actually helps in that regard, right? So this is a great player, I think. I think this is a great prospect. I think this is absolutely a guy I would be sprinting to draft at 15. This is the edge rusher I want, assuming Abdul Carter's gone, right? This is the edge rusher I want. I hope he makes it this far. I think if he's there at 15, this is a spot where you really have to consider just sticking and picking. Even if you get an offer that's compelling, I think Mike Green really makes you consider staying here because I think he's another level. Like this, I like him better than James Pierce. I think James Pierce has his own issues, right, in terms of off-field stuff. But James Pierce doesn't have the bend. He's kind of and he's even like a smaller guy, right? I mean, it's a little odd. Then you've got guys like Shamar Stewart, who's all potential. Donovan Ezeraku, who, I mean this in a good way. Like he reminds me of Arnold Ebiketie a lot, but I thought Arnold Ebiketie was a great value in the second round, maybe the late first round. But Ezeraku's getting this top 15 hype. It's just, I don't know if I can go that high on Ezeraku. I do like him. I think he's a good player. But I can't get there with him at this point. So given that, to me, it's like, I really want Mike Green. I think he's the one that fits. I think he can stand up. He can put his hand in the dirt. He can do all that stuff no matter what the Falcons are running schematically. So Mike Green, if he makes it to 15, I think that's a slam dunk pick. And again, like, I don't know that I would expect crazy things in year one from him, but I think, this is a guy that could get you 4 to 5 sacks as a rookie and not be a total liability against the run. Again, I don't know how much of that is going to translate immediately. The length stuff, he's going to be going up against these bigger players, but he's got the motor. He's very physical. I think he'll be fine. I don't know that he's going to be as good of a run defender against a higher level of competition, but he'll be fine. I don't think he's going to be a liability there. So I really like Mike Green. That's the takeaway there. So I would love this pick, and this would be the one that's like, yeah, I'm not sure I want to trade down if he's there. Jahdae Barron's the other guy that I'm like, if he makes it, I'm not sure I want to pass on these guys. These are two blue chippers, in my opinion, that, obviously with Green, there's the off-field concerns. And again, I can't weigh in. I just don't have the information to make that determination. That's up to the team. On field, I think he's a blue chip player. I would be super excited to add him here at 15. Let's move on now to round 2, pick 58. So, spoiler alert, pick 58 is not the Falcons' pick, right? Falcons are picking at 46. So how did we get to 58? What a question, right? It's a trade, obviously. So this was not necessarily something I went in expecting to do, but one of the cool things about the PFF draft simulator, which is my preferred simulator, I like it the best. And at the site we do have a premium subscription, so I can do these trades. That's the only negative, is that you can't do trades without the subscription. So, it is what it is. But I love all the data they put at your fingertips, even though, PFF grades, it's kind of subjective, right? But the stats are the stats, whether you agree with the grades or not. So the Texans actually wanted to trade with the Falcons. And what that does in the simulator is that actually makes them inclined to give you better value on the trade because they are looking for a specific player. It kind of tries to simulate that. So the Falcons are up at 46, and Jaden Higgins is still there, who I know a lot of people love Higgins, kind of think he's like the last of that top tier of receivers, one of the only true like X receivers in the class in this range. And Houston wants to go get him, right? They want to go get Jaden Higgins, and they're willing to give the Falcons a 3rd-round pick to accomplish that. That is plus value, right? This is kind of the opposite of that trade I did last time, which was not plus value. The Falcons took below market value, getting a 3rd and a 4th to move down a few spots right in the first round. Here, the Falcons moved down, 12 spots, and they pick up a 3rd, but that's 12 spots in the second round, not 12 spots in the first, in the first round. So getting a 3rd-round pick for that move, I think, is good value. It's definitely plus value on most of the trade charts. I didn't check every single one, so I can't say all of them, but I think pretty much all the trade charts would say that's tremendous value there. And just a straight up third round pick added. The Falcons really need that pick. So there wasn't anyone here. I mean, I love Xavier Watts. I've taken him before here. I would take him again. But I think given the trade compensation and the fact that we didn't trade down from 15, I think they need that third round pick. They need that third round pick real bad. So I think getting that here is worth the trade down. And what that enables them to do is potentially consider some guys that maybe would have been a reach at 46, but at 58 you feel a little bit better about. And this type of pick might shock people if you haven't been paying attention over the last week, but here I'm going to actually go with an offensive tackle because I think it's clear the Falcons are sniffing around offensive tackles. The headliner was Kelvin Banks this week that they met with, but that's just the latest one. They've been meeting with tackles all offseason, mostly, early day 3 types. But I think if they had a tackle available to them that they liked, I think that's a clear point of emphasis. And here at 58 too, I think this is a spot where you could draft Jared Wilson. And honestly, even though I took Jared Wilson in the 3rd round last time with that extra pick we picked up, I think there's a very good chance he doesn't make it out of the 2nd round because there aren't any centers in this draft. There's very few centers. They're basically day 3 guys after Wilson, and I think someone is going to take Jared Wilson in the 2nd round because of that. So this is a spot where we could see Jared Wilson happen. But I took Jared Wilson last week. We're not going to do that again, just in the effort, to see some different players. So here we're going to go with an offensive tackle, which I think it's clear the Falcons do want one. Going with one of the best names in the class, Ozzie Trapilo from Boston College. Atlanta going back to the Boston College well here. They've had a lot of luck drafting out of Boston College, right? So I wouldn't fight it. Matt Ryan, Chris Lindstrom, a lot of luck here. Wouldn't be surprised to see them try that again. So offensive tackle here, I don't necessarily love it. I would probably just say, let's just wait and see if we can get one in the 1st round next year, because I kind of think that the Falcons will have an ideal opportunity to take one early next year. But if they want to get someone in the building to start developing now, which is beneficial if you really want, if you're planning to not re-sign McGarry, you kind of need to get someone in here this year that you can trust to develop and get in the system for a year. Trapilo is a good tackle prospect. I think that he has played the last 2 seasons at right tackle. He's also played left, so he can be a swing tackle this year if you need him to. He's got great size. That's the first thing that stands out, right? 6'8", 316. And he is a pass protection specialist. He's allowed just 2 sacks over the past 2 seasons. Good athlete, 8.87 RAS. He's got scheme versatility. I would say his weakness is that he doesn't have sort of the bend, right? Like the knee bend. He's really tall. He has trouble with the leverage battle and generating power in the run game. I think the strength and push in the run game is kind of the biggest thing. I think at 6'8", he's actually kind of lean at 316. I think he could stand to add, 5-10 pounds to that frame, get into those 320s, and it probably won't slow him down too much because, again, that frame is really lean. He's a good athlete. I think you get him in the system, get him in an NFL weight room for a year behind McGarry. He can learn the system. He can get the practice reps with everyone. And then you kind of have him sort of move into that starting role next year where you're going to save a ton of money at right tackle with Caleb McGarry off the books, right? So I think that this is a good situation for Trapilo to come into where he's got time. I don't think he's unpolished or anything. I actually think he's a pretty good pass protector. And again, the Falcons have been very fortunate on the offensive line lately. They've got Storm Norton, but I think, having a guy like Trapilo in the wings in case an offensive line injury happens is never a bad thing. So I think this is a good pick. It's after a trade down, so you're not too worried about, maybe this is I think to me, this is around the range where he's probably going to go. The true offensive tackles in this class are actually pretty limited until you get to the day 3 developmental guys. So I think Trapilo is a really interesting candidate here to help cover a spot on the roster that the Falcons seem to be very interested in improving and potentially saving some money at because, right now they were paying 4 out of 5 offensive linemen. Now they're back down to 3. They could go down to 2 and try to spread that money out a little bit more. So we'll see. We'll see what they do here. But I am curious to see how serious they are about offensive tackle, and if they are, I think this is a prospect that could definitely wind up in Atlanta. All right, moving on to the third round pick that we acquired in the trade with the Texans. The secondary does need to be addressed. One of the other guys that I would strongly consider early is Malachi Starks. I think the Falcons love Malachi Starks. It would not shock me at all if he's the pick at 15. I just don't love doing that because I just don't love the second round edge guys as much as I love Mike Green. I would much rather have Mike Green and make it work elsewhere. And part of the reason is I think this is a good secondary class too. And what the Falcons really need is a slot defender. And I love Jacob Parrish from Kansas State. I've been trying to get him in one of these mocks for a while. I think Jacob Parrish is a very good NFL slot corner. I don't think he's on Shade Barrett's level or anything, but Parrish, very good athlete, 8.82 RAS, really good long speed, 4.35, explosive in the short area, very good change of direction ability. He's a ball hawk. I think he had 9 PBUs in 2024, 5 interceptions over the past 2 seasons. He's just small, right? He's 5'10". He kind of has measured in between 190 to 200. He's small, but he's big. Like, if that makes sense, right? He's thick. He's a stout corner. He's very physical. His one thing, he's played mostly outside, so he does have that experience. But I think he's a slot corner in the NFL because he's 5'10". Doesn't have terribly short arms for the position or anything. Just 5'10". So the big receivers, that's always going to be a matchup that is going to be problematic. But I think you move him to the slot, you mitigate that concern, and you let him really show off his physicality. I think he's a great slot defender prospect. I know some people have him as more of like a day 3 guy. He ain't making it to day 3. I can tell you that right now. I think Jacob Parrish is going in 3rd round. I think this is a good spot to draft him. And I think he fills one of the biggest holes on the roster, which right now is slot corner, where they just don't really have anyone. I mean, I don't think Clark Phillips is your slot corner. So they're kind of just, I don't know exactly what's happening there, but at this point, I'm a big fan of Jacob Parrish, and I think he would be a perfect fit here in Atlanta. He can play zone. He's very good in man, too. He can play press man. He can do all that for you. I think he gives them a good slot defender that should be able to start right away and also has that versatility to play outside if you need someone, if an injury were to occur. And he's been a good outside corner, but I think he's better off in the slot, especially at the NFL level. Moving on to pick 4, 118. We're going to go back to the trenches here, and that's just the theme today, right? We're going to go with the player that the Falcons have been sniffing around a bit. That's edge rusher Q Robinson from Alabama. And it's easy to see why they're interested, right? They need a lot of pass rush help. They don't have a lot of picks. Q Robinson's a guy, I think this is kind of his range around the 4th round. He's only been a 1-year starter. I think he's played like less than 300 snaps in his college career. But in those snaps this season, he had a 24% pass rush win rate, which is elite. 3 sacks and just over 100 pass rush snaps. That is outstanding production. 6'4", 243, so definitely more of a stand-up like pass rush specialist, but does check the length box, 33.5-inch arms. That's definitely right around what you're looking for. He's been super flashy, super exciting. I think he's starting to develop some moves. You love to see that for someone who hasn't played a ton. I think he's actually a competent run defender. I don't think you want him like going head up against a tackle and run defense at the NFL level. That's probably not going to be his game, but I think he's as like a backside pursuit player or a guy that's going to run and chase a bit. He's athletic enough to do that, and he's a good tackler. I just don't know that he's going to be able to push back an offensive tackle as a run guy. So I think he's definitely a project, someone that's going to need some more coaching and working on that pass rush plan and all that stuff. But I think he has the upside to develop into like an edge 3 pass rush specialist. The Falcons, they need more than that, obviously, but I think this could be a draft where maybe you get your edge 1 in Mike Green, and then maybe you get your edge 3 in Q Robinson, and then you just got to find an edge 2. That's a lot easier to do than finding all these spots at once. So I think maybe by next year with these 2 guys, we feel a lot better about the edge room, and maybe, if AK has the season I think everyone's hoping, maybe AK is your edge 2, and then you're feeling really good about the state of this pass rush. So, which would be crazy for us to get there. But, I think multiple bites at the apple, kind of like last year, they took a lot of interior guys, and now we need to see them make a difference this year. This year is like, we're going to take some edge guys, and then, 2026, when this is all supposed to come together, hopefully they will be ready to go. So I like Q Robinson. I think he's a good fit. and makes a lot of sense why they would be investigating him. I think he makes a lot of sense here. So now we're going to the 2 7ths. Didn't have to trade the 7ths away in that trade, so that was big news. But round 7 pick 218. This is where we're going to get a center. And again, it's like there's just the centers all kind of have their issues. That's why they're going late, right? Jake Majors from Texas. The tape is good. And look, like I know a lot of people will be like, oh, is a 7th round pick supposed to compete with Ryan Newsel? Well, Jake Majors, I think, can do that. Jake Majors' thing is he's good. He's a good center. Like the tape is good. He's started a school record 57 games at Texas, SEC competition, right? His pass pro tape is really good. 1 sack and 5 QB hits over the past 3 seasons at Texas. He's 6'3", 306, 7.91 RAS, right? All that looks out. But when you get to the arm length, this is why he's a 7th round pick. He has 30.5-inch arms. That is some of the shortest arms I've ever seen for an offensive line prospect. And that could just be a crushing blow in the NFL. I don't know if that's going to work, right? At this point, though, in the 7th round, I'm willing to see, right? The issue is like with that short of arms, he can't play guard. He's a center only. So he kind of has to show you that he's your backup center in camp, or he's going to be cut, because if he can't back up guard too, then he's not going to make the 53, right? So I do think the tape is good. He's smart. He's polished. He's athletic. He checks all the boxes except arm length. So I think you give him a shot here. I think if he can prove that he's good enough to be your backup center, or maybe even start, I mean, I think he's a polished, experienced player. I wouldn't be shocked if he shows up and turns heads. It's just how big a deal is the arm length. We've seen centers survive with short arms before, but 30.5 is another level. So I don't really know how that's going to turn out, but 7th round pick. Let's find out. Let's see what we got there. And if he's just a backup center who can really excel against certain guys and is going to struggle against others, it's not the worst investment in the 7th round. And I think it's worth taking a chance on, even if unlikely, I think, to be a plus starter for you. If he can be a good backup, that's a good value here. And maybe he can provide something more than that. I think the tape is good. So not too upset about that. And then pick 242. This is the pick I always trade away. So I have to make this one. With this pick and both 7th rounders, really, you kind of just sit back and see who's there. I think positional value and need at this point, not really that important. You kind of just want to grab someone that's fallen, that actually has some potential, instead of trying to reach for a need. But, I think here, looking at Nebraska's Ty Robinson, the defensive lineman, I think he's a guy that I would be pretty happy to get here at 242. I think he could go earlier given his incredible combine, right? I think he put up like a 9.89 RAS. But Ty Robinson is a weird prospect. 6'5", 288. Okay. He's got short arms. He's got 32.25-inch arms. He's a tweener, right? The evaluation's tough because he played all over the place for Nebraska. I mean, I think he played 1 some. He played a lot of 3. Played some 5, up and down the line there. And in college, you can get away with it. But, he's too light to play 3 tech in the NFL. And the arm length is a big problem, I think. I mean, he's got the same arm length pretty much as Mike Green, but he hasn't really shown the ability to get around that. He's not as crazy an athlete. He doesn't have the bend or anything like that where you can kind of mitigate the arm length. But he's very explosive, straight line. He's a high motor, a lot of wins on tape, 6 sacks. He's strong, he's quick, doesn't have lateral mobility. And he struggles to disengage from blocks. So I just don't really know what to do with him. That's the issue. He's got the traits, he's got some production, he's a high effort player. I think, ultimately he's probably a 3 tech, maybe a 4i. Maybe you see if you could put 10 pounds on him and get him matched up inside more as like a pass rush specialist. Maybe this is like a long-term sort of Morgan Fox replacement type of player, like an undersized interior guy that's going to be a pass rush specialist for you. I like Ty Robinson. I think the athleticism is intriguing. The production is there. And I think he's a high effort guy that also has good athleticism, right? So, it's just like, what do we do with this guy? He's kind of in between right now. But I think he's intriguing enough to add here. See if you can unearth something. And if you do, walk away pretty happy with that. So that's all the picks. Falcons obviously end up with 6 picks in this simulation because they trade for an extra one. So to quickly break it down, put it up here on the screen. We got Edge Mike Green go to the Falcons at pick 15. Love that pick. My favorite one. It should be, right? Round 2, the Falcons trade down with the Texans and pick offensive tackle Ozzie Trapilo at pick 58. At round 3, the pick they get from the Texans in that trade, pick 89. Falcons take slot corner Jacob Parrish. At round 4, pick 118, Falcons pick up another edge rusher, Q Robinson from Alabama. And then round 7, 2 picks. The first one, pick 218, Falcons take a chance on center Jake Majors. And then at pick 242, the Falcons grab an intriguing developmental defensive lineman in Ty Robinson. So let me know, guys, what do you think about this mock draft going after the offense and defensive lines? In case you weren't counting, that is 5 out of 6 picks devoted to the trenches. So all you guys clamoring for the trenches, there you go. 6 picks to the trenches. This is kind of, I know, going to be a different approach than I've taken before. I think it's interesting to see. But, it would not shock me if we do see the Falcons go for tackle or center, on day 2, adding an offensive lineman there. To me personally, I think center is a bigger issue right now. But the team maybe has more faith in Ryan Newsel than they're sort of letting on, or they have a plan to add a veteran later or something like that. Or maybe they just view offensive tackle as a more premium position, which is objectively true. So, it wouldn't shock me if they do go for tackle over center, but I also think Jared Wilson's a great fit for Atlanta, so I wouldn't be shocked if they were to pull off this trade down, if they end up taking Jared Wilson there at 58 too. That could happen. So, at the end of the day, like these picks, excited to see your thoughts on these. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of these picks. Who would you take instead if you don't like them? If you do like them, give me that big thumbs up, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Like I said, you can check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Falcoholic Live. You can join the channel memberships as well. Check out thefalcoholic.com for all that terrific written content. Thanks to our new sponsor, MyBookie. Remember, if you sign up there with our promo code MM50, like March Madness 50, get access to their latest promotions there. Thanks again to those guys for sponsoring today's episode. We will be back on Monday night at 5:30 for our patron and member exclusive live mock draft stream. And then that will, of course, come up on the channel for everyone after we're done recording. And then we'll be back on Wednesday with another episode of Falcoholic Live for you guys. So looking forward to that. Draft season's underway. We're ramping up. And of course, excited to bring you guys even more draft stuff as we get closer to time. So it's gonna be a fun run up here. Even if the Falcons don't have a bunch of picks, we're gonna do our best to break them down and come up with some intriguing options for this team to improve the roster with whatever they do end up with. So until next time, guys, thank you for tuning in. I'm Kevin Knight of Falcoholic Kevin. We'll see you next time on the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast. Have a great day, folks.